Think about someone you don't like. You don't need to say who. Just bring them to mind, a coworker, a public figure, someone from your past. Notice what happens when you do. Your jaw might tighten slightly. Your breathing shifts. Something in you organizes itself around that person, sharpens, hardens, becomes alert in a way it wasn't a second ago. You did that automatically. You didn't choose it. And the reason why is one of the most revealing things about what your brain actually is and what it was built to do. Your brain is not built for the world you're living in. It was built for a world that ended roughly 10,000 years ago. A world of small bands, scarce resources, and constant physical threat. The brain you're using right now, the one reading these words, navigating your relationships, forming opinions about strangers on the internet, is the same brain that kept your ancestors alive on the open savanna. And that brain had one absolute non-negotiable priority. Know who is with you and know who is not. In the early 1970s, a British psychologist named Henry Tajfel ran a series of experiments that would become some of the most cited in all of social psychology. He wanted to find the minimum conditions required for humans to start treating each other differently based on group membership. So he created the most meaningless groups he could think of. He showed teenagers a series of dots on screen and asked them to estimate how many there were. Then he told half of them they were overestimators and the other half they were underestimators. The groups were random. The labels were meaningless. Nobody had met anyone else in their group. There was no shared history, no common goal, no reason whatsoever to feel any loyalty to the people supposedly like them. Then he asked them to distribute rewards between members of both groups. Every single participant gave more to their own group. Not because it benefited them. In most cases, participants chose options that gave their group less in absolute terms, as long as it meant their group had more than the other group. They weren't trying to win, they were trying to beat. From nothing, in minutes, with groups that didn't exist an hour before. Tajfel called this the minimal group paradigm. And what it revealed was something uncomfortable. The drive to favor your group and distrust the other isn't the product of history or ideology or genuine conflict. It's a default. It's what the brain does when you give it almost nothing to work with. But why? What is the brain actually doing when it draws these lines? The answer lives in a structure called the amygdala. Two small almond-shaped clusters of neurons buried deep in the temporal lobe, one on each side. The amygdala is your brain's threat detection system. It processes incoming information before your conscious mind gets anywhere near it, scanning for danger, flagging anomalies, deciding in milliseconds whether something in your environment requires a response. In a world of physical predators and rival tribes, this was essential. The person you didn't recognize could kill you. The group you didn't belong to could drive you off the land you needed to survive. Speed mattered more than accuracy. Better to treat a friend as a threat and be wrong than to treat a threat as a friend and be dead. So the amygdala learned to sort fast. Us and them. Safe and dangerous. Known and unknown. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Brain imaging studies have shown that when people look at photographs of members of their own group, their race, their nationality, their political tribe, the amygdala stays relatively quiet. But when they look at photographs of people they perceive as outside their group, the amygdala activates. Not because anything threatening happened, just because the person looked different, belonged somewhere else, was categorized in a fraction of a second as other. This happens before conscious thought, before judgment, before you've had a single idea about the person you're looking at. The sorting is already done, and the brain doesn't stop there. Once the amygdala flags someone as out-group, a second process begins. Psychologists call it infrahumanization. Studies going back to the early 2000s have found that people consistently and largely unconsciously attribute fewer complex emotions to out-group members than to in-group members. Joy, pride, love, shame, the emotions that require a rich inner life, get assigned more readily to people we identify with. The people we've categorized as other get attributed simpler states: anger, fear, basic drives. We don't do this on purpose. Most people would deny doing it at all. But the experimental data is consistent across cultures and decades. We subtract depth from the people we've decided are not like us. And once you've subtracted someone's depth, once they've become in your mind a simpler, flatter version of a person, The psychological distance required to treat them badly shrinks dramatically. This is not a flaw in the system, it is the system working exactly as it was designed. In a small band of 50 to 150 people, which is roughly the social world your brain evolved inside, you knew everyone who mattered. The people outside that circle were competitors. They hunted the same animals. They wanted the same water. In that context, the machinery your brain built makes perfect sense. Distrust the unfamiliar. Favor the known. Keep the circle tight. Keep the threat clear. The problem is that you no longer live in that world. You live in a world of cities and the internet and 8 billion strangers. But your brain is still running the old software. It's still scanning for the tribe. Still looking for the out group. Still trying to locate the any that will explain why things feel uncertain and unsafe. And when it can't find a real one, it builds one. In 2011, researchers at NYU and UCLA published a series of studies on what they called system justification under threat. When people were made to feel anxious through uncertainty, loss of control, reminders of mortality, their need to identify and define an outgroup increased measurably. The enemy didn't need to be real. The threat didn't need to be physical. The anxiety itself was enough to trigger the search. Your brain, under stress, goes looking for someone to blame. Not because you're irrational, because you are running hardware built for a world where something to blame was almost always close by, physical, and findable. Social media understood this before neuroscientists finished explaining it. The engagement algorithms that run every major platform learned quickly that threat and outrage kept people on the screen longer than almost anything else. Content that activated the amygdala, that flagged the other, that sharpened the line between us and them, spread faster, got more reactions, generated more time on platform. The platforms didn't create the tribal brain. They found it. And they built an entire economic model on top of it. What you experience as political rage, as the feeling that the other side isn't just wrong but incomprehensible, as the ambient sense that the world is full of enemies you've never met. A significant portion of that is your ancient threat detection system being handed a fire hose. But here's what all of this actually means. The people you've decided are your enemies. Politically, socially, ideologically, most of them are running the exact same hardware you are. Their amygdala is doing the same sorting. Their threat system flagged you the same way yours flagged them. The feeling of certainty that you are right and they are dangerous is not evidence. It's biology. It's a 3 lakh year old circuit doing exactly what it was built to do in a world that no longer exists. That doesn't mean everyone is equally right. It doesn't mean real threats don't exist. It doesn't mean the lines we draw are always wrong. It means you should be suspicious of how fast your brain draws them. It means the certainty itself, the absolute conviction that the person on the other side is not just mistaken but malicious, is a symptom worth examining. Because that certainty isn't coming from evidence. It's coming from a part of your brain that never learned the difference between a rival tribe on the savannah and a stranger with different opinions on the internet. You didn't choose to create enemies. Your brain did it for you automatically, efficiently, and long before you had a say in the matter. The question is what you do now that you know.